Define your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me.
This teen suspect had a future on the football field until today.
This, the video 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony wanted everyone to see. A highlight reel of him playing football for Centennial High in Frisco, something colleges watched.
Karmelo Anthony, class of 2025, Centennial High School, Frisco, Texas.
The teen proudly writing online he'd been offered several scholarships to play at various schools. But those dreams deflated Wednesday. Anthony charged with murder after police say he stabbed Austin Metcalf to death, another athlete from within Frisco ISD, at the district track meet following a fight.
I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Police swarming the scene. From the sky, we saw them collecting evidence at the stadium. Metcalf later dying at the hospital.
Private funeral services were held today for the teen student athlete who was stabbed to death at a school track meet earlier this month. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was killed back on April 2nd. A teen student from another school has been charged with his murder. The crime has been thrust into the national spotlight, bringing some controversies along with it. On Monday, the alleged killer will make his first appearance before a judge. Fox 4's Amelia Jones is following all of the developments for us tonight. She joins us live courthouse where that hearing will happen. Amelia.
Hi there, Casey. At Monday's hearing, we expect Karmelo Anthony's lawyers to ask for a bond reduction so he can get out of jail. But today in Frisco, the focus was on comforting the friends and family of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. People filed into Hope Fellowship Church in Frisco to say one final goodbye to 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Some people wore football jerseys to the service as Metcalf was a member of the Frisco Memorial High School varsity football team. He was also a member of the track and field team. During a track meet earlier this month, Metcalf was killed after he was stabbed in the chest during a fight and died in his twin brother's arms. The fight was with 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony, a student athlete from a different Frisco high school. Arrest documents say the fight was over a seating dispute in the bleachers. Anthony was charged with first-degree murder, and his bond was set at $1 million.
Well, obviously, it's a very tragic case when you have a 17-year-old killed and a 17-year-old boy charged with the murder happening during a school event.
Toby Shook is a criminal defense attorney not involved in this case. A bond hearing is set for Monday, where the defense team plans to ask the judge to lower it.
You shot great, but you shot late. High level. This is the Rundown Podcast.
I'm going to give you the rundown.
All right, there's not much I can say. The judge has made the call, and so what's important is what's next. Frisco PD will be finishing up their investigation. They will submit the case to my office. We will review it and ultimately present it to a grand jury. And so that's what's next. That's pretty much all I can say right now. We do our speaking in, as far as the facts go, in the courtroom. Many of you were in there, so you understand what was said. But this is a terrible tragedy for our entire, not just Frisco, but Collin County community. One family has suffered a permanent loss. It's the most unnatural thing for a parent to lose their child. It's permanent, it's profound, it's certainly premature, and it's the hardest thing that a human being can go through is to lose their child. The Anthony family has had a different kind of loss, but a loss nonetheless. But the judge has made her call, and we look forward to continuing the process and looking forward to reviewing all the facts of the case that Frisco PD is coming up with and present it to a grand jury. What we are concerned about as prosecutors is justice, truth, and accountability. And so we will go where the facts lead us. Thank you so much.
Could you speak about the security and the vitriol and just the safety even for the judge and your officer?
Well, this has definitely rocked our entire community. And so it has struck a nerve in the community. And it's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this. So that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads.
Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are two sides to every story, and Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid and an excellent student. He is the captain of his track team. He is the captain of his football team. And prior to this, what was on his mind was what college he was going to go to. This is a tragedy all the way around for both families. Rushing to judgment, trial by public perception and trial by media is not how we ensure justice is done. We are confident that after a full investigation, that the truth will come out. Thank you.
Mike, you took umbrage with the state's assessment that this was simple and brutal. Why so?
Well, the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's two sides to every story, and we've only heard one side. In any criminal case, the police investigate, and the defense is always far behind that. And so it is a one-sided investigation to this point, and even that investigation is still ongoing. So to say that it happened this way or that way is just not accurate at this point. All of the facts are going to come out, and that's why our system of justice requires that we keep our minds open and we let the facts come out as they are after a full investigation.
Is your client going to be able to make bond and get out today?
I anticipate that he will be able to make bond. I can't speak to how quickly that will go. Funds, in the funds that have been raised are not quick to come out. And then, there's obviously a process to the release process once bond is posted.
The big question that a lot of people have is, why was this young man armed on school property?
That's an understandable question, but it's not something that, frankly, we're prepared to even go into. This is something that I know the police and the prosecution want to get it right and want to have a full and fair investigation, and so do we. So it would be irresponsible for me or them at this point to start saying, this is what happened, this is why, anything. So I understand that's a big question. It's going to be a big question, and it's something that we will find out, and we ask that the public, as hard as it is, withhold judgment and let both of these families have justice, that let both of these young men, the Metcalf family and the memory of who they've lost, but also Karmelo, have a fair and full justice process.
How your feeling on the reduction of this bond? You feel it's fair?
Yeah, I feel it's fair. Bond, as the judge said, is not supposed to be an instrument of oppression. It's not supposed to keep people in jail. It's not supposed to punish. It's supposed to ensure that a person shows up to court, complies with all conditions, and it's supposed to keep the community safe. So this is a large and substantial bond, and the judge has, I think, rightly imposed reasonable conditions that will ensure both Karmelo and the Anthony family's safety, but also the safety of the community.
What was Karmelo's reaction today? He didn't seem very talkative toward you, and how has jail, been so far for this teenager, and is he on suicide watch or anything like that?
I honestly can't speak to Karmelo's reaction because I was so focused on the hearing and what was going on and what the judge was saying. I think we have to all remember Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid who's never been in any sort of trouble before. If you can just put yourself in his shoes, this is a scary, bewildering process, and I can't even imagine what was going through his head, just as I'm sure I can't imagine what was going through the heads of the Metcalf family. So, this is something that is new to all of them and incredibly trying.
Just how unsafe does this family feel? You mentioned it multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to speak for them at this point, but I think you can imagine the press coverage on this case has been immense, and the online and public reaction has been immense. And unfortunately, as is common in our culture, especially lately, the vitriol and the public reaction one way or the other has been intense. And threats and talk of race war and all kinds of insanity isn't good for, obviously, the Anthony family. It's not good for the Metcalf family. It's not good for the peace and safety of our community. So, I would ask, and I know both sides would ask, that the temperature on this be allowed to come down. That the media, you guys have a job to do, and I understand that everyone does. But at the same time, we just ask everyone in the public and everywhere to let this process play out fairly and fully for both sides.
Say, man, hey, man, it's OG Jucario. Now I'm back at you with another one. And Karmelo Anthony, the 17-year-old accused of fatally stabbing another student at a high school track meet in Frisco earlier this month, was released from jail Monday after his bond was significantly lowered. Anthony was released from the Collin County Jail about 4:20 p.m. and put on house arrest with the ankle monitor after an hour-long hearing at the county courthouse in McKinney on Monday morning. District Judge Angela Tucker lowered Anthony's bond from the $1 million to $250,000.
We're up.
Karmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me.
Karmelo, you can say.
Anthony had been in custody on a murder charge since April 2nd when he was arrested and accused of killing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at the District 11-5A track meet at Frisco's David Kirkendall Stadium. Anthony has told police he was acting in self-defense. While under house arrest, Tucker said Anthony will only be permitted to leave home with permission. And this is, with the judge's permission. And mainly trips to his attorney's office and meetings in court, and will also need to be with an adult at all times. He is also not to contact the Metcalf family in any type of way, right? Including on social media. Now, it came down to certain factors that were considered in this bond, and it says that included Anthony's age, lack of criminal history, and the ties to the community, including several family members, close friends, and a football coach and a manager from one of his part-time jobs who showed up to the hearing. On the Metcalf family side of the courtroom, which was also full, Megan Metcalf, Austin's mother, bowed her head and cried as the decision came down. Greg Willis, the Collin County District Attorney, told reporters after the hearing that his office is focused on the next steps, reviewing Frisco Police's investigation and presenting the case to a grand jury, which will determine whether Anthony will be indicted and face trial. And he says, what we are concerned about is prosecutors' justice and truth and accountability. And so we will go where the facts lead us, Willis said. Willis said he considers the case to be a terrible tragedy, not only for Frisco, but the Collin County community as a whole.
Within the last hour, a judge granted the request to lower the bond for a North Texas teen facing capital murder charges. 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony is accused of stabbing and killing another student at a track meet in Frisco. Anthony claims he acted in self-defense. Chris Sadeghi live from the courthouse in McKinney. And Chris, the judge heard from Anthony's family this morning before making her decision.
Yeah, Kara, this hearing just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. In it, we heard from Karmelo Anthony's father. He testified about his son, and in the end, the judge did decide to lower the bond from $1 million to $250,000. Karmelo Anthony entered the courtroom handcuffed, wearing a yellow inmate jumpsuit. He spoke only to identify himself to the judge and stared straight forward while his father, Andrew Anthony, testified about how his son is the oldest of 4 siblings, a straight-A student, active in his church, and worked 2 jobs while serving as captain of the football and track team. To this point, he's not had any criminal history. All factors his defense brought up when asking the judge to lower the bond. The amount they were asking for was $150,000. The prosecution, though, argued the bond should have stayed at $1 million, even asking Andrew Anthony about the online fundraiser that's raised $412,000 for his son's defense. Ultimately, though, the judge said the purpose of bond is not a punishment, but to ensure the defendant returns for his court dates and to protect the community. If Anthony does post the $250,000 bond, he will be on house arrest, confined to his home with a leg monitor, and cannot leave unless the court grants permission. Asked by Judge Angela Tucker if he understood the terms of the bond, Karmelo Anthony simply said yes. Austin Metcalf's family, the victim's family, was in the courtroom. It was a packed courtroom, not a seat to be had, and the judge did acknowledge the amount of scrutiny on this case, not only from the media, but the general public, pointing out that she's presided over many murder trials involving many different races, and that she has never seen the amount of security precautions having to be taken by deputies as what they're seeing in this case.
The Anthony family has a different kind of loss, but a loss nonetheless. Mike Howard, Anthony's defense attorney, says that he feels that the judge's decision was fair. Howard had asked during the hearing that Anthony's bond be lowered to $150,000. And he says it's not supposed to be an instrument of oppression, Howard said. It's not supposed to keep people in jail. It's not supposed to punish. It's supposed to ensure that a person shows up to court, complies with all the conditions, and it's supposed to keep the community safe. So basically this is not, raise it as high as possible, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million, just to ensure that, a person doesn't get out of jail. This is not what the bond system is for. This is what Mike Howard, the defense attorney for Karmelo Anthony, is saying. Howard declined to delve into the specifics of the case, but said that there are 2 sides to every story, and that after a full investigation, he is confident the truth will come out. Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life, he said. It was a packed hearing. The hearing Monday morning, a little less than 2 weeks after the fatal stabbing, was packed. About 10 minutes before the hearing was expected to start, guards turned away a woman who identified herself as the mother of a friend of the victim, saying all of the public seating available inside the courtroom was taken. Andrew Anthony, the father, was the only witness called to testify on Karmelo Anthony's behalf. So Karmelo's father was the only one called, is what they're saying. And it says that he said his son was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but that the family moved to North Texas a few years ago for a better life and better opportunities. Andrew Anthony said his son, a senior at Frisco Centennial High School, has worked his way to becoming captain of both football and track teams, holding 2 part-time jobs, and is an A student who is making plans to go to college. He added that his son is also a great big brother to 3 younger siblings. After Karmelo Anthony was arrested, Andrew Anthony, the father, said he had to take an indefinite leave of absence from his job as a finance manager at a car dealership. He explained he is the sole provider for his household, with his wife being a stay-at-home mom. As of Monday morning, an online fundraiser for Karmelo Anthony has surpassed $415,000 when asked by Collin County's first assistant district attorney, Bill Wursk, why the money wasn't already being used for Karmelo Anthony bond to get out of jail. Andrew Anthony, the father, said that the money from the site could not immediately be accessed. Howard later clarified that the funds will also be needed for Anthony's long-term defense. Like I was telling y'all in that first video I made, it's going to take a lot of money to prove this self-defense, case or whatnot, and including paying for experts, a team of investigators, and other manpower. It will also be disingenuous to say there isn't money, Howard told the judge in his closing statement. But it is not a bond fund. This family needs to be able to survive. Now, Wirtz argued that $1 million was not unreasonable on its face, calling the killing a brutal murder. I don't know why we are here, he said in the hearing. The crime has devastated our community. Our community needs confidence in its court system, says Wirtz. After hearing both sides, Tucker promised her decision was based on the law and the Constitution, not the court of public opinion, repeatedly stating that the case had spurred unprecedented safety and security concerns for everyone involved, including the judge, right? Which was asked about in that press conference. Hey, what are y'all doing to protect the judge in this whole thing? She's getting threats, the family's getting threats, right? Karmelo Anthony, who attended the hearing in a yellow jumpsuit with his wrists handcuffed in front of him, did not appear to visibly react when Tucker announced the bond reduction and firmly walked him through the conditions of his release. I know he was happy, right? Everybody, who was, looking at this thing from Karmelo's eyes. Hey, man, I was getting bullied. I told this person not to put their hands on. See, this right here goes to any, future incidents like this, right? When self-defense comes in a state that has you stand your ground and you don't have to retreat laws. When somebody, is threatening you, right? Putting their hands on you, you have testimony of this. People saying, yeah, he pushed him. Yeah, he grabbed him. Yeah, possibly punched him if that comes out in the video. And we're still waiting on this video evidence, right, to come out. Will the video show Austin or, Hunter, one of the twins, punching Karmelo, right? So we shall see, man, because this is what Cornell X was saying, right? That the two Caucasians he interviewed told him that one of these twins punched Karmelo.
That young brother was attacked.
I know you're yelling because you really get worked up when you're lying.
Bullshit,
well, let me say, let me say very clear.
But then it's justified.
Us killing
but when we defend ourselves, now, it's murder. If you in my face threaten to do bodily harm to me, if you threaten me over and over to do bodily harm to me, and then you punch me in my face, because he got a right to use whatever force necessary to stop that attack.
So what you're saying is, if it turns out that everyone that was there that gave witness statements that have been published, if they weren't lying and he didn't punch him in the face, right? If they didn't threaten him with physicality, he didn't punch him in his face, do you still think that murder was okay?
I've talked to two
Do you still think that murder was okay?
I've talked to two students who were right there, Caucasian students. And they told me, yes, he was punched in the face.
Now, this very lenient, understanding judge, she's catching a lot of flack because she's black, right? Angela Tucker, the judge, she says this to Karmelo. She says, you can be over there in a box or you can be at home. Do you understand me? Says Tucker, right? And then Karmelo says, yes, ma'am, Anthony said. The background, according to her arrest warrant affidavit, Anthony, a Centennial student, was waiting out a weather delay under a tent. He was waiting out a weather delay. How you gonna make me move when it's raining down pouring, right? Pouring down. I'm trying to get some, some coverage here from not getting wet, like everybody else doing. Why you singling me out, brother? Why are you so worried about it? Right? Nobody else said nothing to me. Why did Austin Metcalf have to be the one? Oh, because like his mama say, Austin, he's always the one that's gonna stand up and bully. He's always going to be the bully in the situation. Yeah, that's what his mama wanted to say.
Yeah. Austin was always one to step up. He always was one to step up and be the person that would do the right thing.
That Austin is always known to be hot-headed, tempered, right? Yeah, stand up for his little brother Hunter, right? Yeah, that's what the mother wanted to say. Then she goes on to say that, she can't forgive this boy. Yeah, she can't forgive Karmelo Anthony, but the father forgave Karmelo Anthony.
But I have seen interviews with your husband in the last 24 hours, and it was remarkable to me that I heard your husband say within hours of this that he forgave this other young man, and he got there so quickly. And I honestly don't know that I could, and I just want to see, and I don't know that there's a right or a wrong place to be, especially as quickly as this has happened. Megan, how do you feel on that front today?
I am not like their dad. I am so angry at that boy. It's just not fair. That's all I have.
Now, back to the background. According to the arrest warrant affidavit, Anthony, a Centennial student, was waiting out a weather delay under a tent designated for Frisco Memorial High School students, where Metcalf attended school. And when Metcalf told Karmelo Anthony to move, Anthony allegedly reached inside his bag and said, "Touch me and see what happens," the affidavit said. Metcalf then touched him, to which Anthony replied, "Punch me and see what happens." So basically, it sounded like a deadly game of dare, right? So basically, this is what I get from that whole paragraph. You know, once they got into it, once it said, right, that Metcalf told Anthony to move from up under that tent. Now, according to, the brother of Metcalf, Austin, his brother Hunter said, that Anthony replied would make me move. Right? This is when they start going back and forth. Now, this isn't saying that, Anthony said make me move to Austin, but we know that according to other testimony. Because, see, they're not going to put everything in every article. So we got to know that as well. So him saying touch me and see what happens has to come after Austin had already threatened to put his hands on Karmelo. Karmelo doesn't have Tourette's. He doesn't just yell out, "Touch me and see what happens." Ain't nobody said nothing about doing nothing to him and he just yelled it out. No, that's not how that went. So he doesn't have Tourette's. He just didn't yell that out. Austin was already making threats. He was already talking about removing him or forcefully making him move him up under that tent, punching him, fighting him, or whatever type of bodily harm he told, Anthony he was going to, commence if he didn't move. This is when, Karmelo Anthony replied with, "Touch me and see what happens." Start reaching in the bag. Then they say nobody thought he had none. Why not? You don't know him like that, right? You don't know what he got. Nobody thought that this kid, would be bullying this boy, right? Nobody said nothing about that. Nobody thought that, Austin Metcalf would go as far as doing what he was doing to try to remove Karmelo Anthony, did they? So, both of these teens got to be held accountable for their actions, and that's true, right? Austin was obviously held accountable by Karmelo. Unfortunately, two 17-year-old undeveloped brains, right? You got Austin over here. He's, known for taking up for his twin brother, known for always being a leader, and, being maybe a bully, allegedly, who knows? The enforcer, let's say that. Maybe he was known for being the enforcer. Does that sound better? I mean, I don't know. Some people, it can't please everybody. Everybody's not going to be thinking on the same level. Everybody's not going to be, in accord with one another. But nevertheless, say, man, hey, man, amen. It's very unfortunate that this whole thing turned out how it did. Now, I think this is very key right here because Cornell X says that there's going to be evidence of Austin Metcalf punching, all right, Karmelo Anthony. And could this be true? Because right here in this document, right in the incident report, it says that, Anthony allegedly reached inside his bag and said, "Touch me and see what happens." At this point, he's reaching inside the bag. And then Metcalf touched him even after he seen, Anthony reached inside this bag. Right? So Metcalf touched him. That means, I touched you. What's up? To which Anthony replied, okay, well, Anthony kind of knew that really wasn't enough at that point to do what, he, was going to do to him, allegedly, stab him with the knife. So at that point, when he changed it up and said, okay, since you touched me, well, that little touch, since you want to be funny, okay, I tell you what I really mean is touch me in a way like hurt me, like bodily, do bodily damage, injury to me. And see what happens. See, that's what Karmelo Anthony was really trying to convey to Austin Metcalf. But sarcastically, Austin Metcalf Okay, bet. I touch you. Now what? Now what? Now what are you gonna do, buddy? What? I touched you. Even though he seen Anthony's hand in his backpack, right? He's bold. Austin's very bold. Yeah, so just imagine the immaturity at that point. I touched you. Now what, buddy? What are you gonna do? Ooh, I'm scared of you. Got your hand in your bag. You just never know what was actually being said. It was a heated moment because that's what Hunter said. Hunter said it was very escalated, you know. And at this point, you know, you kind of notice that Hunter never described his brother as being aggressive or being reckless, you know, talking reckless like he said, you know, Anthony was doing. But see, that lets you know right there. They never wanted to paint, you know, Austin Metcalf as the aggressive one, even though all the actions and all the evidence is there of him initiating, right? Telling somebody what to do, where to sit, right? Telling somebody to move. And if you don't move, what he's going to do to you. So basically, I said all that to say this. When Karmelo Anthony said, punch me and see what happens, that wasn't an invite. No. You got to be a total moron / nincompoop idiot, right? Imbecile to believe that that's an invite. Now, you do know what comes with punching somebody. That's an assault charge, okay? Yeah, this is not the internet world. This is the real world where you catch a real charge, okay? Yeah, see, this is where trolling on the internet gets people in trouble. Oh, man, you couldn't take a punch? Okay, you go out there and go punch somebody, right? If they could take it or not and see what happens to you, bucko, right? So this is where people got the lines, you know, blurred with this internet and real life stuff, man. You know, you can't punch nobody. So with Karmelo knowing this, that's why he said, punch me and see what happens. Because if you take it to that extreme to put your hands on me like that, yes, my life is in danger. I don't know what you'll do to me, right? I don't know if you got a weapon either. So that was merely Karmelo Anthony saying, look, if you would go that far to put your hands on me and assault me and punch me, you know, now I got the right to defend myself, is what this 17-year-old kid thought in his mind, you know? And it seems like, you know, the courts and the law is favoring his side, right? It's not wavering on his side, it's favoring his side. So, you know, what, you know, the analysis is showing now. And also the campaign raising over $12,000 as of today. Say man, hey man, amen. You know, they saying black people don't stick together, and next minute they saying, oh, now y'all stick together, and I'll make y'all mind up. Either we stick together or we don't. Just because, you know, who's to say who donated all this money? How y'all know black people donated the money? What the facts said? Who knows who donated the money to Karmelo Anthony's fund? Right? The Give, Send, Go. Who knows who funded that money? If it's majority blacks or not. It could be majority white. Who knows? Somebody could be, you know, donating a large lump sum. The facts aren't out on that. So, you know, it's mind-boggling, you know, all the propaganda that's being put out there, all the fake news, the hate news. It's sickening, man. It's disgusting. You know, everything that's surrounding this case. Now, it doesn't specify if, you know, Metcalf actually punched him, but it jumps into this and says, according to the report, Metcalf grabbed Anthony and again told him to move when Anthony pulled out a knife, stabbed Metcalf once in the chest, and ran away. Anthony later told responding officers he was defending himself, explaining, he put his hands on me. I told him not to, while crying hysterically, according to the affidavit. The affidavit said Anthony also asked if Metcalf was going to be okay. Metcalf, who died in his twin brother's arms, was pronounced dead at a hospital less than an hour after the stabbing. Now, according to the agency that's doing the, you know, the investigation and making sure the civil rights aren't violated on behalf of Karmelo Anthony, right? They said that was a lie. They're saying that, you know, the brother dying in the twin brother's arms is a lie, because the twin brother said that, you know, he seen his brother's soul leave his body and things of that nature. And, you know, the agency that did the investigation is saying, look, those are lies. You know, don't feed into this, because this is what they're using to gain sympathy, right? For, the victim who ended up losing his life, which happens to be Austin Metcalf, but who is also, they're saying, is the aggressor, okay, according to the indictment and the police report.
It was a huge tagline that was said that Austin Metcalf died in the hands of his brother. And it was false. And we have to be very careful when we report things.
In a recent statement released last week, Anthony's family said that they are sincerely saddened that a life was lost and asked the public not to rush to judgment before all the facts and evidence are presented. This will certainly be a long road, the statement reads. And during this challenging time, we ask for prayers and for both families, and we ask for your patience and respect for the legal process as we seek the truth. Jeff Metcalf, Austin Metcalf's father, previously told the Dallas Morning News that he feels for the family of the alleged assailant because his life is over. His family will be devastated also. And, Jeff Metcalf also, his, expressing to this news station in this interview, his resentment, right? His disgust for the parenting, okay, of Karmelo Anthony. And when he said this triggered a lot of people because you have this father of, this twin, okay, that allegedly was going around, bullying people. And he's on here now talking about, the parents and who raised, what type of parenting, was done to raise Karmelo Anthony and, things of, that's disparaging nature, negative nature. Okay. But then you have him. Okay. On the other hand, okay, his background is being delved into. And now we have evidence, okay, that has been put out there that Jeffrey Metcalf, okay, has a history of SA, okay? There's a case from back in 2011 where, these boys, these twins, Austin and Hunter, they were very young, right? 3, 4 years old. And that's when Daddy got that SA charge, you guys. And this is when, their world was turned upside down, all right? They had to move, away from Daddy, right? Because he got this charge. It doesn't go into the specifics of, who, he allegedly SA'd according to the paperwork, the arrest records, okay? Now, time after time, we also see where, when a black man is being charged for something, right? When he's, saying he's a suspect or something, they go, and dig up the background of the suspect, the family members, especially the parents, right? They always do that when it comes to the, black suspects and crimes. So now when you, dive into the background of the father of the victim that they're saying, Austin Metcalf, right? Jeffrey Metcalf has a background as well that, the media, the national news media isn't talking about. But, thank God for platforms like mine and others on social media, who have the free speech, platforms, and, we can express, what's really going on, okay, and not be censored and told what we can and cannot talk about, okay, when it comes to certain things, because they want to paint the picture that, Austin Metcalf comes from, this tight-knit family, when in fact that's not true, okay? Austin's mother left their father, okay, Jeffrey Metcalf. Obviously, when this SA charge came into play, she must have left Jeffrey, okay? It took those boys with her, right? She split, took those twins and left old Jeffrey behind to have to register every year and go through that embarrassment and shame alone, because she definitely, Megan wasn't going through it, okay? And now we see she's married to a whole nother individual, and this is where the boys grew up with her and this other guy, okay? But, yet and still they portray to us as, they're a family. But notice that when she and the son Hunter did the interview for Fox, you didn't see Jeffrey there, right? Even the host of Fox was like, hey, I know your husband's in the background. Jeffrey there? But nah, she's not married to Jeffrey, bucko. She's married to another individual. And even the twin, Hunter tried to, shush her up when she was about to say, that that, you know, she's not with the twins' father no more, and hasn't probably been, and obviously, as you know, evidence is pointing to, in years since those, like I said, those boys were like 3 or 4 years old.
I'm gonna ask you one last question. I've seen interviews with your husband, who I can hear in the side, by the way. I think he's there in the room with you. I saw an interview last night. Okay, someone else. Yes, okay.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, man, they can't hide the fact that, you know, this guy Jeffrey Metcalf is very suspicious, and people feel he's hiding something. He has a, you know, creepy background on him, and people are going to do some digging, man. They're going to find out, you know, who that SA charge, you know, possibly could have involved, because people are still trying to figure out, you know, because had it, you know, been, you know, something, you know, a little one involved, let's put it like that, it would have said a minor or something, you know. But, you know, for him to go on there and say, you know, and ridicule the parents, and, you know, act as if, you know, this is their fault, you know, on how, you know, their son made a decision. No, that was wrong, okay? Because that would be like, you know, him taking accountability for his son, Austin, you know, being a bully, telling somebody to move, you know, threatening to, you know, punch them, you know, touch them, and push them, and things of this nature to get his point across.
And I rushed up there, and I saw him on the gurney, and I could tell. They said he wasn't breathing, and I could see all the blood, and I saw where the wound was. I'm not trying to judge, but what kind of parents did this child have? What was he taught? He brought a knife to a track meet, and he murdered my son by stabbing him in the heart. The guy was in the wrong place, and they asked him to move, and he bowed up. This is murder. I don't know. I know they have someone in custody.
Yeah, we do.
And you know what? I already forgive this person.
Already?
Already. God takes care of things. God's going to take care of me. God's going to take care of my family.
You know, they're talking about why did, you know, Karmelo Anthony have a knife? Well, why did, you know, Austin Metcalf push Karmelo? Why did Austin Metcalf punch Karmelo, allegedly, if that's what happened, right? Why did Austin Metcalf tell Karmelo Anthony to move, right? What business of it was his? Nobody else was saying to Karmelo, move, but Austin, right? So these are the questions you have to ask, right? Why is he initiating everything? Who made him the captain of the ship? Okay? So this is, you know, the problem, man. Nobody wants to ask the hard questions, right? Why aren't people saying, well, you know, he shouldn't have never put his hands on the other child, right? Teach your children to keep their hands, right? Feet, body parts to themselves. So this is what, you know, Austin Metcalf failed at. You know, he obviously thought he can get his point across with using, you know, a certain, that type of violence, okay? And that had a reaction from the other individual that he was inflicting these violent acts upon. So, I mean, this would, you know, call and warrant for self-defense, okay? So a lot of people aren't liking that Karmelo is now home. That's right. He's now free. Karmelo is, you know, at home with his family. His mom and dad, I'm pretty sure they're delighted to have him home, and, you know, they can, you know, love on him and, you know, give him all the encouragement that he's going to need to, you know, feel confident enough that he's going to come out of this thing a winner and beat this case. Now, nobody would have never known that Karmelo Anthony had a sharp object in his backpack at all, had nobody ever confronted him. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the fact that, you know, why aren't they saying, why was Austin Metcalf, you know, the one that was initiating and being the aggressor, you know, in the whole matter? They're not talking about that, right? They're victimizing him, demonizing and vilifying, you know, Karmelo Anthony because of his actions, but not because of, you know, the actions of Austin Metcalf, right, which caused a reaction from Karmelo Anthony. Now, it's not, the reaction you're looking for, but you can't tell somebody how to react to something, okay? Each person is going to react how they want to react, okay? And if you don't agree with how they react, this is what the courts are for, okay? Obviously, everybody has their day in court, and this is their right. This is the civil rights. This is where their agency came in to make sure that Karmelo is getting his rightful day in court in a fair trial with no prejudices, no racism involved. And this is why the press was asking about the safety of that judge, okay? Because look at the disgusting stuff that's been saying on Twitter, on X, about this judge and her decision to give Karmelo Anthony a bond, right? Like he didn't have a right to that, okay? Like they said, this is not about keeping people locked up. This is not what a bond is for. This is ensuring that they show up to court, to the proceedings, okay, to be tried in that trial. That's what a bond is for, not to keep people locked up, beyond accessible, amounts of money to make a bond in order to get out. So this $250,000 that she reduced it to from $1 million allowed the family and the estate to come up with the $25,000, the 10% to get out on bond. And it could have been cheaper, than the $25,000, depending on what bond company he went with. This happens at times. Now, beyond all the bias and all the fake news of Karmelo not coming from a stable home, because his parents been married for over 17 years, right? Yeah, that's according to, reports that, Karmelo was 17, so his whole life his parents been married. But then you look over here, at the Metcalfs, right? You have Jeffrey Metcalf with this SA charge leading to the breakup of, him and Megan Metcalf, right? And she takes the boys, take the twins with her, okay? They grew up in broken homes, all right? And, so besides what the media, the news is showing us, we got to know that, there's some dark stuff going on here, but, they tried to paint the narrative as if, Karmelo Anthony was the one that came from the troubled home. But as we see with these twins, this could contribute to them having anger problems, right? So we're going to do a psychosis on them, right? Maybe that's what led to the anger problems. What their dad did, the sins of their dad, fell upon them, right? And look what we have now, okay? Maybe those boys was harboring some ill will feelings towards, the situation of growing up fatherless, not in the same home as their father. And once finding out what their dad did, because we don't know if they knew that or not, but I'm pretty sure they did, right? And that right there was more embarrassing and damaging, to their character, right? Causing them to possibly act out more, right? And be these bullies or whatnot. Now, as they said, the mother, Megan, she dropped her head in disbelief when Karmelo was given that bond. Obviously, she wanted to, stay locked up until the trial. But fortunately for Karmelo, he was a good kid, 4.0 GPA average as well. Okay, let's not forget that. Captain of his football team, captain of the track team, right? A member of the church, right? Saved a drowning baby, right? From a pool. They don't even talk about that on the news. You know why? They don't want to, make Karmelo seem as if he's a hero. If you make him look like a hero because of what he did in his past, saving his child's life from that drowning, this will make him look as if, he's a hero again for saving his own life. Yeah. We know. We already got it figured out. We know why they won't run that narrative, right? But it's not even really a narrative. It's just the truth, right? It's just real life situations that happened in this young man's, Karmelo Anthony's life. He saved a child from drowning. No mention from national news media. But like I said, this is the type of games that they play when they want to show favoritism and sway the jury before the trial even starts. That should be illegal. We should have the same type of coverage. They should dig into the background. Why they ain't digging into the background of Karmelo Anthony? Right? That's crazy, because if they dug into the background, they would definitely find that out about him. Right? That he was looked at a hero, right, in this situation. So it makes you wonder, why won't the news media look into the background of Karmelo Anthony? They look into the background of all these other criminals that they, claim that, have done certain crimes. You know what? The harsh truth is they already know the background. And they know that him being a hero, saving this child is a part of his background. And that's not a narrative that they want to put out there. That's not the story that they want to run, coinciding with these charges about him having to, plead self-defense because he says, right, he was in fear for his life. And as far as that picture that's circulating with the guns that says Austin Metcalf's, name on the account, okay, and it says, I dare one of those monkeys to show up to the track meet today, with the firearms displayed, okay, in the lap or whatever in the picture. Okay, now it doesn't show, the actual face of the minor, Austin Metcalf, in the post. But it has the name, and many people are saying, this right here is to perpetuate, the situation because this is a fake post. Now, they're saying this is fake news and this was not the account of the teen, Austin Metcalf, who lost his life. And this was indeed a fake account who's, putting out this false information and making, Austin Metcalf to look as if, he was already, intentionally looking to go start some trouble. And then with, the Austin Metcalf name being on the account with the picture, right? It said Austin, Texas. So Austin, Texas has nothing to do with what went on in Frisco, Texas. So I got to thinking, the post says, these monkeys better not show up to the track meet today. I dare them not to, right? And with, showing the guns. And it says Austin, Texas on the location. Austin Metcalf, but, it's spelled funny. Why would he post this knowing that it's public information, knowing that, it's a public threat? Why would he do that, right? So we should know that this, didn't occur in Austin, Texas, right? This track meet occurred in Frisco, Texas. So, that right there was a red flag for this post to, be said as coming from Austin Metcalf, hours before or day before or whatever, the track meet that was in Frisco. But it's documented as Austin on the post. So, people have to be smart about these things. People put out a lot of, fake posts, as, this post that is circulating around the internet saying this is Austin Metcalf making this statement. And it's actually not. Okay, now he does have an Instagram, that the news had a link to, and it's totally different. Okay. So, yeah, man, it was just it's crazy because they all went over there to this David Kirkendall Stadium on buses. As you notice in the picture, that was like in some sort of vehicle. So that he didn't, wasn't no guns involved in the situation. So that should also let you know that, this was fake, okay? Because they would have basically told us that by now, all right? So, people just have to be aware of what type of information they're sharing and, basically taken in, because they could have, easily noticed that this is fake. This is some type of AI generated, post or altered post to that matter. But yeah, man, it's just very unfortunate that so much energy is going into this case, man. So many people are, spewing so much hate, right? They going after the judge, making threats, going after the family, the kids of, the father and mother of Karmelo, right? His brothers and sisters. So yeah, man, these people is sick, man. It's disgusting. And it, really gives you a inside look at America, man, how evil and black-hearted and, grimy, right? That, these people are, how dark it is really behind race when it comes to race relations. people can be some very nasty individuals, right? But yet and still, when these things don't go on and there's no mention of it, you know, these are the same people acting like they're holier than thou, acting like they're so religious, right? Even the father pulling out all the Jesus and God, you know, faith references on his clothing, right? And the news zooming in on that and, you know, trying to make out Jeffrey Metcalf to be this religious, you know, guy when he has a background of his own, right? That they're not even talking about. Why? Well, we all know why. Because they want to make Karmelo Anthony and his family look as if they're, you know, they're dysfunctional. It's a broken home there. And this is actually, you know, quite the opposite towards, you know, the Metcalfs and the raising of those twin boys. And we also had a witness that said that, you know, his daughters were sitting under the same tent at Memorial, right? When this whole incident took place. And he said that, you know, according to him, these guys was trying to bully, okay, the situation with Karmelo Anthony and making him move and punching on him and things of that nature. So it's like, once you got all these elements and aspects, you know, that you find out about the situation, it's not looking good at all for Metcalf in their defense.
It was raining. They got rained out like crazy bad. Everybody trying to get back to their cars or get in, you know, places where they, you know, wouldn't get all extra wet. Dude was sitting up under the tent, right? He was on his phone, right? My daughters was up under the same goddamn tent. Yeah. So I'm paying attention to my kids, but at the same time, they're in the same vicinity. So I'm watching everything going on around it because I'm there for my children. So dude walks up, McKellen, bro, he wasn't even under the tent at the time. They came from a whole separate tent and walked over there. They intentionally went over there to this kid, man. Dude was sitting there on his phone just trying to get dry, you feel me? One thing went from another. They grabbed this man and they tried to punch on dude. Dude went in his bag and they went to try to jump this dude and punch on this dude, man. And he protected himself, dude. That's what happened. Yeah, it wasn't just one. It was both of them, bro. Austin, that dude that got unalive, and his brother physically went over there to intentionally. It's not to the point that he brought a knife. For one, it wasn't on school property. The school is at least 5 to 10 miles away. It was a community track meet, bruh. It wasn't a school track meet. So he had the right to have a knife on his person, bro.
Yeah, man, so y'all get in the comment section and y'all let me know what y'all think about this entire situation. And until the next time, this is OG Jucario TV with the latest in rap, hip-hop, celebrity, and urban news. You're watching the Rundown Podcast. I appreciate everybody for spending with me. I appreciate all my subscribers for sliding with your boy every time. And say, man, hey, man, keep hitting that like button, keep hitting that subscribe button, and look, turn on post notification so we can slide whenever I get the drop. You already know what it is, man. It's deeper than Buddha, her, you hear me? And guess what? I'm gone.